This is just an opinion and I do gun videos. But this video is specifically targeted toward the brand new gun owner. So if you are a brand new gun owner, and more specifically, if you are the brand new owner of a semi-automatic pistol, like the ones you see here, and you want to know a little bit more about how they work, this is for you. So this is going to be just a short introduction to how this gun works, important things you need to know that are very basic. I encourage you, strongly encourage you, to read the owner's manual that came with your gun, cover to cover. If you bought your gun used, if you bought it from somebody you know, if you bought it at a pawn shop, whatever the case might be, and it did not come with a manual, every gun manufacturer should have those manuals available online. Google it, go to their website, look for it. If you still don't find it, you can either contact the manufacturer or you can even go to various forums. Use Google to find a copy of that manual. You should be able to find it. It's really important to understand how they work. But I'm going to use two different examples of semi-automatic handguns to show you the basics. This is not a gun safety video, although I will interject comments about safety as they are appropriate as I go along, but I do have a short video just on the safety rules for handling guns. Please watch that one too. Okay, so I've got two different semi-automatic handguns here, and they're very similar and a little bit different, and I'm going to talk about the differences. The one on the bottom here is a Glock. This is a Glock 19. It's a 9mm handgun. It is one of the most common 9mm semi-automatic handguns in the world. This one is a Beretta 92. It's a variant of a Beretta 92, and it is also a 9mm, and it is also one of the most common 9mm handguns in the world. The United States military used it for a long time. So what does semi-automatic mean, first of all? So what that means is, with each pull of the trigger, the gun fires one round, and one round only, because they are semi-automatic, not automatic. But it is self-loading. So as long as there is ammunition in the magazine, it will load another round and it's ready to fire again. This Beretta functions exactly the same way in that respect. It is semi-automatic, and with each pull of the trigger, it fires one round and then it loads the next round to be ready to fire, as long as there are rounds remaining in the magazine. The difference between these two is this Beretta has a hammer and the Glock does not. So the Glock is a striker-fired gun. Everything is internal. You don't see it, but the firing pin is inside, and it's actually controlled by a very powerful spring. And that spring is released when we pull the trigger. Actually, when we pull the trigger, the spring is cocked the last little bit and then released. Okay? This one has a hammer, so the hammer is going to fall, just very similar to how it does in a revolver. Let's start with the basics. Now I'm holding my gun the safe way, right? Using my gun holding hand with my stiff trigger finger nowhere near the trigger. And I'm going to eject the magazine using the magazine release button right here. I just push it with my thumb. Magazine pops out and I can remove it. Now in this case the magazine is empty, so that means the gun needs to be loaded. So let me give you a quick tutorial on loading a magazine. If you're right-handed, I would recommend holding the magazine in your left hand, using your right hand to load the ammunition. It's also a good idea to use a tabletop or something firm to put the magazine down on, just because it's easier for you to push against the spring. There's a spring inside this magazine, runs all the way from here to here, and as you push it down it gets tighter and tighter, and so it gets a little bit more difficult to put the rounds in the more you put in. The part up top here that you see, this orange plastic piece, is called the follower. And it's simply called that because it's following that last round of ammunition all the way up as the spring pushes it. It's also made so that the cartridge will very easily slide across it in both directions, one for loading and the other for unloading. A lot of magazines have witness holes, either on the back or on the sides. Sometimes they'll be on either side. It gives you an idea how many rounds you have in there. You'll be able to see them. We'll show you that in a minute. So to load your magazine, again, place it on a table or some other surface if you can. If not, I use my own leg or whatever just to give myself a little stability. Sometimes I'll even hold it in against my waist like this. One entire unit of ammunition is called a cartridge for a semi-automatic handgun, and actually for most modern weapons of any kind. So you want the flat base of the cartridge pointed forward as you hold it, so out to your fingertips and the end of your thumb. And you want to bring it down to the magazine, and you're going to start by pushing down this way at a bit of an angle with the bottom of the cartridge, and you're going to use your thumb to do that. I have this thumb here to guide me so that if it wants to slip one way or the other, this thumb will help me keep it straight. Remember, there's a spring under here. As I push that down, you can see that that follower collapses down into the magazine. We have what's called feed lips right up here, and these lips are slightly smaller than the diameter of this cartridge. So they're going to keep it from coming back out, but first we've got to get it underneath them. So I'm going to push it down this way and then back. Okay? One more time. Down and back. Let me try to not obscure it so much. Down and back. And you don't have to be able to do that all in one smooth motion. It takes a little while to get good at doing that. If you just get it in there and it's like this, that's okay. Just give it a push and push it back the rest of the way. Now your second round might be a little more difficult because now you've got this slippery first round to push against instead of a nice flatter, better shaped follower. So again, we're using the same technique, but this is where your thumb to guide, and sometimes even your other forefinger. Make yourself a little nest to put it into. Put it down, push against that other round, pushing it down, and then slide it back. Now the good news is it does slide back typically a little easier against the round below it than it does against the plastic follower. But again, if you wind up with this, that's okay. Just push it back. What you'll find is you can't get the next round in until this is all the way back, because that bullet sticking out here is going to stop it from going down. So with it on a surface, it's a lot easier because now you've got your tabletop holding the bottom of the magazine in place for you. So we have loaded a number of rounds into our magazine. You can see through these little holes, gives you an idea how many are in there. Okay, so the next thing is to put the magazine into the gun and actually load the gun. Now there's several steps involved here, and there's a couple ways we can start out. We can start out with it just the way we see it. And I can insert the magazine and push it up, and you can see that I get to about here. And then I need to push harder for it to click into place. And now it has. And I want to double check. Try and pull it out. Just try and tug on it a little bit with your fingers and make sure it doesn't want to come out. The reason for that is with the slide closed the way it is, there are components inside the slide that are going to be pushing down on this top cartridge. And we've actually got to compress it like that to get it to seat all the way. If we don't, what's going to happen is the magazine will just fall out. It will not feed that round and the gun won't be loaded properly. So again, you want to push it until you hear that click most of the time, and you can not be able to pull it with a gentle tug. Now that may not always be easy just pushing with your thumb. It looks easy now, but it may not always be. So the best way to do it is use the heel of your hand right here to just do it this way. Give it a tap. You're not going to hurt anything. You don't want to try and hit it so hard you're going to hurt your hand, but you just want to give it a good firm smack, and that makes sure it's seated, but you still want to get in the habit of tugging it. to make sure that it's really in there. Okay, now you say, the gun's loaded. Now what? Well, the gun is not loaded. There is a loaded magazine in the gun, but the gun is not ready to fire. The reason the gun is not ready to fire is because there is no round in the chamber. From this condition, in order to fully load the gun, chamber a round, and have it ready to fire, we need to rack the slide. Okay, so you would pull the slide back and then let it go forward, and there are a number of ways to do that. Slingshot method is taking your thumb and forefinger on either side of the back of the magazine while you hold it like this. Again, this finger absolutely nowhere near the trigger. Keep it straight. Pull the slide all the way back and then let it go. Don't try and ride it forward. It needs all that momentum. Now once we've done that, there is a round chambered. The gun is ready to fire, and you can notice that the trigger is now in the forward position on this Glock. Okay, I'll switch over now to this Beretta. Finished the demonstration here. I've loaded this magazine with a handful of dummy cartridges, perfectly safe for demonstration. And the Beretta is a little bit different in design, but it functions exactly the same way. And again, one of the key differences with the Beretta is that it has a hammer. And it also has a decocker to drop the hammer safely. Now when I'm showing you the loading the gun with the Glock, I said there were a couple different ways we could approach that, right? Well, here's another way, and with a hammer-fired gun, sometimes this is the best way. So the gun is empty, it is unloaded, there is no magazine in it. I'm going to pull the hammer back. Even though I know this gun is unloaded, I'm going to treat it like it is loaded because that is good safety. So with my finger nowhere near the trigger, I'm going to pull the hammer back, and then I'm going to place my thumb on this slide stop. And I'm going to move the slide all the way to the rear and push up on the slide stop, locking the slide open. This is the condition the gun will be in, a semi-automatic, after you've fired your last round. When that follower, the plastic follower we looked at, comes all the way to the top, it engages a mechanism that pushes up that little lever that holds the slide open. That's why your slide stays open after the last round. Now when I insert my magazine, I don't have any resistance up at the top. There's nothing pushing down on that top round, and so it's a lot easier to make sure I have a positive seat. So you may find that you like doing it that way better. You can practice both ways, but you may like that better. And now we can do one of two things. We can either grab the slide and pull it back and load it, or we can use this lever to simply unlock the slide and let it go forward. If you're new to guns, I would recommend you doing it this way first. So you want to just take it, and you can either go overhand this way, or you can slingshot it like this and just pull it back until it is all the way back and let it go. Again, don't ride it forward. It needs all that speed and momentum to properly load the round. So this gun is now loaded with safety ammo, but you can see that hammer is all the way back. It is ready. If you don't want that hammer back because you've just loaded it to keep it safe in case you need it, this gun is equipped with a hammer drop safety. So I can safely put that hammer back. This puts this into double action mode. Now it's going to function basically just like a revolver in double action. When I pull the trigger, two things are going to happen. That's why they call it double action. First thing is it's going to bring the hammer back, and it's going to tighten the spring, and then when it gets all the way back, when the trigger's all the way back, it's going to release the hammer and fire the gun. That's where the term double action comes from. Two actions are happening with one pull of the trigger. When the gun fires, it's going to cycle just like the Glock did. It's going to eject the empty case, and now it's going to feed the next round from the magazine. I'll try and hold it slow here so you can see that happening. It feeds that next round in, goes all the way forward. Our hammer stays back. If I let the trigger come forward to reset, it's now ready to shoot again. And I can continue that. If at any point I'm finished with shooting and I don't want to shoot it anymore, I can safely drop the hammer by using this lever to decock it. Okay, so what if my gun is loaded and I want to unload it? I want to make it safe, completely safe and unloaded. Well, right now we have a round in the chamber, we have a magazine in the gun. First thing I want to do, step number 1, remove the magazine using the magazine disconnect button right here, keeping our finger completely away from the trigger. Remove the magazine and all of the rounds of ammunition that it contains. Set that aside. We're not done. Step number 2. This is important to understand. There is still a round in the chamber. Taking the magazine out did not remove the round that was in the chamber ready to fire. With most handguns, it will still fire. If I pull the trigger, it will fire that one round. Even if your handgun has a safety designed not to allow it to do that, you still want to assume that it will fire that round. So, the next important step, again with our finger completely away from the trigger, is to take that slide and pull it back. And you want to do it rapidly. You want a nice rapid smooth motion to eject that round out of the chamber. Okay? And now you can see it is empty. It's a good idea to lock the slide back, and you'd have to do that manually by pushing the slide lock lever up while you're pulling the slide back. And now we can see we have an empty chamber. I like to take my pinky and touch it just to make sure. I have felt that it is empty. I can see that there is no magazine in the gun. If I hold it this way, I can see all the way through it. So now we know there is no ammunition in this handgun. You can bring the slide forward, drop the hammer, and now that gun can be stored. So what would happen if I did that out of order, if I did the wrong sequence? Because people do that. They make that mistake. Don't feel bad if you make that mistake. Understand that it is common, and so it's a matter of just practicing it a few times safely until you understand. So let's do that. Let's do that the other way around. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rack the slide. I'm going to take that round out of the chamber, right? Because I know I have a loaded round in the chamber. I need to remove it. Okay, and now I'm going to take the magazine out and get rid of the rest of the ammunition. So now the magazine is out of the gun, and I took the round out of the chamber. What's wrong? All right, so if you were following along carefully, and again, if you're a beginner and you spotted the flaw in doing it out of sequence like that, you know that when I racked that first round out of the chamber, another round was automatically fed from the magazine. And then I took the magazine out. So guess what? I still have a round of ammunition in the chamber. The gun is not unloaded. So let me show you by just slowly moving the slide backward. You can see, there it is. That's why, just like in mathematics, order of operations is important. Always remove the magazine first and then empty the chamber. That way you don't feed another round into the chamber. Okay, I feel like that was very high level, very quick, and it was. It's certainly not an exhaustive lesson by any means, but I hope if you are a new gun owner and you're not familiar with your new semi-automatic pistol, that gives you a good place to start. Again, read the owner's manual. If you don't have it, get a copy online. I'm sure there's one somewhere. Go to a forum. Ask questions in this video. If you need to post a question in this video, I will do my best to answer them. and I'm sure other people, other viewers will as well. We all want to help you be safe, and we all want you to enjoy being a gun owner.